Welcome, everybody, to the Bassfug Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest all the way from Chennai, India, Siddhat, a.k.a. Ezzyland. Ezzy, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's talk about something right off the bat. Your music style is all over the place. When I was going through your discography and I was studying for the interview, you have songs like Skins. It's a dark industrial hardcore song. But then you have something that is like Speedrun, which is like IDM glitch. And then you have something like Bombs, which is kind of like, I don't want to say pop, but like something that you would hear on the radio, sort of like a light trap.
R&B.
R&B. Can you explain your journey through these styles and why not have different project names for each one of these styles? Why do you have them under the same name, and do you find there's a problem when you keep everything under the same name?
I started making music when I discovered hip hop, when I discovered rap, and it was essentially through Dr. Dre. Um, so the very beginning of my journey, I was just making hip hop beats, but because I was making beats on a DAW, which is basically electronic music production, and I got introduced to the whole SoundCloud community where people always try to innovate and challenge each other to like bring something new into the game. So that's how I got into blending genres, you could say. So making beats just didn't do it for me. So I started trying to look into what else I could do, and I would just try to replicate the styles of artists that I would listen to at that time. And obviously, unless you put in like a lot of effort, you wouldn't really be able to actually fully replicate someone. Like, it would always have your own twist in it. And then over the years, as I continue to do this, I realized that blending different genres that I liked is what I did best. And it was like a fusion of electronic and hip hop. And eventually, I kind of found a voice because I always want to use my voice as an instrument. So all you need is some auto tune and a hella reverb, and all of a sudden you make R&B music. So I guess you could say my music is like a mixture of these three, to put it bluntly. But then again, I also try to innovate and like push the boundaries of the boxes, especially in the electronic scene.
You say using your voice as an instrument. Can you
Right.
elaborate on that? Because there's some people that I think they want to, add vocals to their production, but it's kind
Hmm.
of, it's not like buying a new keyboard and you just sit there and dick around with it till you get cool sounds. It's your own voice. You're expressing yourself, and there's a lot of emotional um, uh, I guess feelings behind it. And some people, when they start to sing, I've been to a vocal coach before, and she told me that some people, when they start to sing for the first time, they start to cry because they've never sang before. It's like a weird trauma thing. I'm wondering if you could talk about how you started to use your voice in your music, and maybe elaborate on some of the production tips that you talked about when doing that for new listeners, new producers out there.
Hmm. I think I'm not sure how long ago this was, but when I first discovered artists like Young Thug, for example, um, this was back when I wasn't really used to the trap slang and all that stuff. So when I listen to an artist, like let's say you listen to someone like Eminem, you kind of get what he's saying. Like even if you're from a third world nation, you can make out what he's saying in English. But then you move to Atlanta artists and you listen to stuff like Lil Baby or Young Thug, it's going to take you a while to get there. It's going to take you a while to understand what they're saying, to get their flow and all that stuff. And when I first heard Young Thug, before he had even blown up or anything, I said to myself, this is going to be a thing. It's going to be a movement where you use your voice more as an instrument to complement the beat than like be lyrical in nature. And that's exactly what happened. And I really wanted to do that too. And for the longest time, the thing is, I started making music because I wanted to be a rapper. But the thing is, I grew up listening to US hip hop, and I wouldn't like for it to sound any other way because honestly, I felt that rapping in my accent or um, whatever dialect I speak kind of sounded unnatural at that time. And I hadn't really found that voice. So I would try to emulate the artists that I would listen to. And it wasn't going so well, let's be honest. It wasn't going so well. And I find that at some point I found a way to use my voice creatively to pretty much lay over vocals on my tracks, and I liked how they sound, and I made peace with it. And it kind of like the accents are kind of international. Like I don't know if you noticed, but they're like
I
all
did
over the place.
notice. I did notice. No, I super
They're
did.
kind of all over the place. Like you would find some UK stuff, some US, and sometimes I would just be comfortable pronouncing stuff with my Indian accent. And this is how I talk in general, by the way. And it's like whatever gets the point across the quickest. Um, I grew up listening to a bunch of different music from all over the world, and this is how my brain portrays English in the first place. And I thought that would make it a unique approach. And I didn't have to like hire a vocal coach or someone. Like I've had friends who hired vocal coaches who would teach them the US accent. And I didn't go that far, but I always wanted to cater to an international audience, to a somewhat Western audience. So I wanted to be approachable to them. I wanted my stuff to be approachable to them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's it. One time I discovered the power of autotune, and how not to excessively use it, how to excessively use it, and the power of reverb. And that was that.
That was one of my questions that I wanted to talk about, the accents.
Hmm.
When I
Right.
was listening to your hip hop tracks, I didn't I don't know how to say this, but
Hmm.
it sounded really like something I listened to like off Dat Piff or something like that, you know.
Okay. Okay.
And it's fun. It's funny that maybe the lighter side of Dat Piff, maybe not
Mm,
not Project
right.
Pat or something, but
Right.
I'm curious because you mentioned sort of idolizing American artists and
Hmm.
and sort of saying that it felt authentic if you were rapping with your mother tongue. And it's weird. I don't want to open a can of worms here, but I don't know, man. I just sort of feel the same. Here in Montreal, we have a lot of French rappers. And when I
Right.
see Quebec rappers and I hear Quebec rap,
Hmm.
I just think it sounds silly. I'm sorry if people are out there and they want to beat me with a baseball bat. But when I think of rap,
No, I totally get it. I totally get it. It's not for everyone.
I think of Ice Cube.
That
I think of Compton. I think of Easy E. I think of NWA. I think of
right.
Juicy J, Project Pat, 50 Cent. I think of all these people that are singing about housing, lower cost housing, ghettos,
Hmm.
drugs, just a lot of American things. And when I hear
Hmm.
that style used out of that context, for me, I don't know, man. It's like it just takes me out of the movie, I guess.
Like maybe Irish drill rap.
I've never heard of that, but
That's the thing. You should check it out.
okay, I'll check that out. So it's funny that you acknowledge that as an artist, and then you worked to try to emulate that. But at the same time, it feels sad because it's like you're sort of hiding your own identity. Can you talk about that? Did you find any conflict, or did you just straight up go like, no, it has to sound American?
I mean, I wanted to use my voice as an instrument. I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to make music like the artist that I was listening to at that time. And like any brown kid who was introduced to rap music, ideally you would go through Eminem first, and then you would realize that, wow, I don't know if I should even be listening to this. And you would eventually gravitate towards 50 Cent. And that's where I get my need to make bops, I guess. Like make hits, like make club records, bouncy stuff, fun stuff, stuff like that. Like you can make a track and it doesn't have to be serious. And like, so I guess 50 Cent is when I decided like, yo, I want to make stuff like this. And how it started off is no one in my entire generation is even slightly musically inclined. It was just me. Like it was like a whole mutation or something. And I would just be in my room trying out different sounds by screaming into the USB mic port. I didn't even have a mic back then. I would just be screaming into the USB port. Like even now, that's the case. A lot of people ask me, Izzy, what mic do you use? And I'm like, I literally am screaming into the USB port. It's all about the processing.
Oh.
So I would just try out different stuff. And different people think different things, but the Indian accent is like there's a time and place for it, right? Like if I was at that time, I just didn't think it sounded natural. And if I wanted to be taken serious in a Western society, I decided, okay, I'm gonna try and learn English like these guys do speak.
Yeah.
But as I grew older, I guess I was I figured that it's all about enunciation, it's all about style, it's all about flow. Your accent doesn't really matter though. You As long as you can make it work, it works. Like I have songs where I actually rap in an Indian accent. I have songs where I rap in Hindi. I don't even speak Hindi. I don't even know much of Hindi because that's like a Northern Indian language, and I'm from the South. But as long as you can make it work, you can make it sound cool, you can make it sound hip, you can like, like portray yourself any way you want. And I think that's one of um, the things about Ezzyland is that he is truly a citizen of the world. Like you don't really want to put a label on him, say like, okay, this is where he's from. Sure, he's from the East, but like the idea is that the dude is from the future.
That's
Like
awesome.
the idea, yeah. So it's like in the future, all societies come together. It's like a whole mixed bag. It's like it's like living in Dubai. I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Dubai, and you just grew up near people, around people, hanging out with people who you never thought you would meet in your life, like white people, black people, Arabs, all kinds of Indians, neighboring countries, all that. And you would um like a part of them would rub off on you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and you would just have this personality which is like somewhat like a chameleon or something. I don't know if that's the right term, but it kind of changes with the times, with the mood, with the company you're with, the way you speak, your comfort level, and all that.
You're like a sponge soaking it all in,
Yeah, pretty much.
You could use that one, yeah. No, I can really relate. My mother's Colombian, and in the house there was always like Latin music. But then I'd go hang out with my friends, and they were all listening to, the Dead Kennedys and Sex Pistols and stuff like that. So it was like half punk, half like Latin. So you learn from everybody, especially musically. For different styles, because I think natively each ethnicity has their own sort of style, musical style, you know.
Right. Right.
Let's talk about maybe you could speak about the Indian scene. Is there any scene you were talking about talking to some friends? Are there? Did you meet other like-minded producers that helped you on your journey where you are, or is everything that you're doing like sort of over Discord? Because we talked to a lot of guys on the show, and now it seems like the new thing is Discord. All the EDM producers, all the bass music producers, they all hang out on Discord, and it seems like there isn't a lot of in-person contact anymore, especially with the stupid pandemic. Maybe you could talk about the
Right.
pandemic, and you could talk about your the music scene in India.
Okay. Um, I made most of my friends through SoundCloud about what 6 years ago. I'm not so sure. Like it's been a while, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, and we came up together. Back then, SoundCloud had this feature called groups, and it doesn't have that anymore. But you could discover music based on genre. You could discover people. You could talk to them, and you guys could like build together and do collabs and stuff. I didn't do much of collabs back then, um, but I did exist in group chats on Twitter and such, and got to meet people from all over the world. And I've always had a very international friends group, and I've always been that kid who's just been in his bedroom and never left his bedroom. So I guess you could say that I just existed online. I didn't really have like a social life or whatever. I think it's more like I chose not to have one because I felt like the internet was a far more exciting place than my surroundings at that time. And I was fully invested in the music. Like I wanted to see all that I could do, and I didn't want to waste any time going outside, catching sunlight, playing cricket, or whatever the other kids did.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted to see how far I could go because this was like really interesting, and I have this drive to create, and I have this in me until today. And the fact that I was on SoundCloud just facilitated me to make friends with like people from other countries and stuff. And I moved to India like a couple years ago, and until then I didn't even like people didn't even know what I looked like or where I was from. There were a lot of funny guesses as to where I was from, and I would always be like, "Wow, thank you, I'm honored, but I'm not Punjabi from Canada or anything like that. I'm not from the Isle of Man, none of those.
Yeah.
Just regular Indian dude with
They thought you were
a
Canadian.
strange. Yeah, they've said all sorts of things. I can't really recollect the different countries. Some
It's
of them just couldn't, pinpoint.
it's crazy how that's something that when you're talking about this is sort of my journey from 20 years ago. I started using a program called SoulSeek. It was sort of like a Napster but with chat rooms.
Okay, yeah.
And I lived in this small town, 40,000 people. Like there was like 10 cool people there, and so I had to go on the internet a lot, and I'm hearing this story, and it was the exact same thing. And I was talking to people from like Japan, Australia, Germany, and they were telling me about the outside world that I didn't really know about, especially with music, like
Right.
teaching me about Aphex Twin and all this stuff. So it's I can definitely relate to your story. But the thing that I wanted to mention for the audience is it's funny that they didn't know who you were because you were sort of being anonymous. And this is what the internet culture used to be. The internet culture used to be, if you used your real name, your friends would make fun of you. You would only use your internet handle. But now everybody's using their real name, and I don't know why. It's like the dumbest thing to do. Like, why would you want to be who you are on the internet when you could be whoever the hell you want to be? You could pretend to be a Canadian in a chat room. Do you feel like there's something with internet anonymity that really helped you succeed? Like if you would have just came out and if you just would have jumped in Discord and said, "Oh, hi, I'm Siddhat from India. How are you?" Do you think it would have been a lot different?
Yeah. First of all, if I would have done that, I don't think I would have come this far. Like, I really don't. Like, I think the fact that I prevented myself from speaking to others and just working on myself. I think I was just a shy dude in the beginning, right? And jumping into a Discord server with a really heavy Indian accent and being made fun of, that wouldn't have gone well at all for your
Mm.
self confidence or whatever in an international space. Um, I would say, yeah, I think you got to chalk it up to the fact that I was just shy in general. I haven't really socialized much. I didn't have any interest in it. And I just wanted people to know me for my music, for the stuff that I make. Like, here I am making this music on this international platform. I'm putting it out there. This is the music, this is the mixing, whatever, and this is the artwork. Let me know what you guys think. And then I get some feedback, and I'm like, wow, I feel a part of this community right now. Like, and this is not something that I had in real life. In real life, it was just different. Like, I didn't feel like I was fitting in anywhere. Like you said, you can be anyone on the internet. Just be an enigmatic person. You could be a dog on the internet for all you care,
Yeah.
and people would like love you for what they see in you. And I think that's what brought me a long way. I just did the whole identity revealing thing, like what, like couple of years ago, like 2 years, 3 years ago, because I moved to India and I was like, okay, let's see, like, let's move to the next chapter. Let's be the artist who was proactive and like grow really hard and fast in the Indian scene. And I kind of regret it because I kind of liked it before when I was like anonymous and stuff. But it is what it is. It has its perks. I do have a lot of people who speak to me every single day who are inspired by me. And I think it's going to create like a new environment around me. So I wouldn't call it the worst thing ever that happened to me, but it's fine.
Let's
uh, i'm all I'm also like much more confident in myself, in the way I carry myself and how I speak to people and all that. I didn't have this back in the day, like what, 6 years to 10 years ago. It's been like a decade since I started this journey. So yeah, I'm fine now. I can carry myself anywhere, but back then I couldn't. So I guess the internet was a great tool for a shy kid to like build his confidence up and find his ground.
For sure, that's what it used to. That was its own sole
Yeah,
purpose 20 years ago. It
right.
was just the only. You didn't
Mm.
have all the Karens and the soccer moms on the internet now complaining on Twitter about
Yeah.
bullshit about
Yeah.
Wendy's or whatever. It was just
Mm.
it was just nerds that were online, playing video
Yep.
games and living their alter egos. Even
Right.
the famous David Bowie, he used to talk about. You could find some David Bowie interviews from the late '90s, where he just
Mhm.
loves the internet because he says, in real life, everybody knows I'm David Bowie, but online, I
Right.
could hide who I am, and no one knows who I am. You
Yep.
know. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about some music production. You said you
Mhm.
started 10 years ago. Can you talk about how you got started, what your first DAWs were, who your mentors were to teach you? Like, did you learn just from YouTube, or were you reading the manuals? Can you give us sort of the journey of what music production stuff you were using until now? And don't hold back. The more details, the better.
Okay, so you wanna know the whole thing, like how I got into music and stuff?
Yeah, let's start with the well, we could start from the beginning, and then let's stop with the music production. Let's start about your first
Mhm.
music memory first, and then we'll talk about the nerdy technical details. What was your first music memory growing up? You said your family wasn't into music. How did you
Yeah.
how did you spark your interest to make music?
In the sense, no one in my family is like a musician of any kind, right? And the way I grew up, it was just music playing in the background, like on TV or on the radio or something, and I didn't really notice it until when I was 14, I think. And there was this song playing on the radio in the car when I was driving with my dad, and it was this Eminem record. And that was the first time I actually paid attention to a song. I was like, this is different. Like, what is this? What is going on? There is so much emotion. And Like you mentioned, SoulSeek back in the day, I think it was LimeWire
Yeah.
and uTorrent and all that stuff. I went home and tried to do some research. Like I looked it up. I downloaded some music.
Oh, watch out. He
Um,
might be listening. No, I'm just joking.
yeah, downloaded. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Downloaded some music and I checked it out. Um, and I eventually gravitated towards 50 Cent because back then it was Eminem, 50 Cent, and Dr. Dre. And then once I finished digesting the works of 50 Cent, I was like, who is this third person? What does he do? And like he's in all the pictures and stuff. And then I realized that he's the producer. So okay, how does he do it? He uses softwares to produce music. And then I look up what softwares can we use to produce music because until that point, I don't think anyone around me or even me knew how music was made. Like I just assumed it was people playing instruments, or
Yeah.
you go in the studio with like really expensive equipment and you press buttons. I mean, it is kind of that, but I didn't know what it was at that time. And when I found out about Dr. Dre and how he produces music, um, I looked up. I don't even know how I got into it, but I picked FL Studio, and FL Studio was my first DAW of choice, and it is till today my number one. It's the one that I'm most comfortable with. I also use Ableton at times, but if my friends are listening, they would laugh at me because I don't think I'm as fluent with Ableton as I am with FL. FL is just speed for me. Like I can get my ideas out as soon as I can because I've been using it for like so many years. The layout clicked with me, and I think I just had fun sitting in my room. This was like a secret thing, by the way. Like I didn't make music openly because I was, I guess you could say, scared of criticism.
Yeah.
When you're interested in something, when something means a lot to you, you don't want it to be criticized or to be made fun of. I'm not saying I was from a toxic environment or nothing like that. Obviously, it was a very nurturing environment for me to have gotten this far. But I'm just saying that I was not open to any kind of criticism or hatred or anything because it's a collision of two worlds. Like you bring something from the first world into the third world, there's gonna be some friction. So I would spend a lot of time in my room, late nights when everyone's asleep, trying different things on the DAW, trying to emulate artists. Eventually, I would try to use my voice. I would just say a couple of words in a vague white accent, and I would be like, "Wow, that sounds amazing! Wow, I just slapped some reverb on it. It sounds like the dude on the radio."
Yeah.
And it just grew from there. And eventually, I guess you could say I found my voice. 10 years later, after being a part of the SoundCloud community and seeing the crazy stuff that they make, I just feel like the people on SoundCloud, they don't talk as much as we used to. We were like a really tight knit community, and we would challenge ourselves to like innovate and make the coolest shit ever. It happens today as well, but thanks to how the internet is set up, it's just not the same anymore. It's
Yeah.
like the group chats are just not the same anymore. But yeah, SoundCloud is what showed me all the different subgenres and introduced me to the idea of experimenting. Also, you can chalk up being an experimental producer to the fact that you're just learning a new DAW and you're just bad at shit and you just don't know anything in the very beginning. So you just try, even if you try making a record like someone else, it's gonna turn out bad and you're gonna be like, but I still kind of like it. It has
Yeah.
this touch of myself to it.
You're stuck using the
And
default FL
yeah,
Studio bass drum for the first 10 songs.
yeah. Even till today, surprisingly, I use a lot of the stock sounds in
Yeah.
FL, and a lot of people don't do that. But that's just because I learned how to manipulate sounds. Like you can give me the least number of sounds, and I can make like an entire song out of it. And like I would surprise you. I think that was one of the good things about my journey was that the scarcity and the availability of stuff. Like sure, I had all the material on the internet. I could watch all the tutorials, FL tutorials. I would just sometimes watch tutorials of other DAWs to see if I picked up something that would click on mine. Sure, but a lot of it was experimentation and trying out stuff to see what worked out.
Yeah, that's a very common sort of story I hear with FL Studio. You know,
Right.
it's a DAW that is super powerful, but when they started, they just picked the worst name, and I think
Yeah,
that's
I
what
was kind
screwed
of
it up.
disappointed when I heard what FL stounded for, but I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, like, it's too late now.
Yeah, like you take a DAW like Pro Tools, and the only reason why
Mhm.
it's an industry standard is because the name
Right.
Pro is in the
Pro.
fucking name.
Hmm.
If it would have been called Pro Loops, it would have been the other way
Mm.
around. But, anyways, can you talk about some of the VSTs that you're using, and maybe some of your sound design tips, and maybe go a little bit deeper into how you produce?
Mm, sure. I got into VSTs very recently. I've almost always used stock plugins.
Or you could talk about the stock plugins too. Yeah, sure, like Harmor or Vocadex or whatever you're using.
Citrus is mine. Citrus has been my favorite. I just like the layout. I like the whole matrix situation going on, and that's probably like the first synth that I learned. Because it took me a while to get around to Serum and stuff like that. But Citrus was the one, and Harmor is fun too. GMS, three times oscillators. These are all like the VSTs that came with the FL version that I had. Oh, by the way, for the longest time, I just had the demo version of FL on my laptop,
Mm.
and I would just bounce out stems of every session and just keep them for the next, like, because you can't save in the demo version. So, I just made do with what I had. And next time I would open up the laptop, I would try to see if I could do something with those stems
That's
because
awesome.
I'm not going to be able to save it. Yeah, I,
That,
I
that
think,
that's a good lesson to teach people, you know, because everybody thinks
yeah.
they need the state of the art laptop and they need all this software
Mhm.
and stuff. You can just record the demo. You
Yeah.
know, if there's like a synthesizer that you want, like let's say there's like an Oberheim OBX that you want or something,
Mhm.
just go on YouTube and sample the damn thing. There's so many. It's so
Exactly.
easy
I don't
now.
know why people don't do that. Like, okay, your laptop can't use Omnisphere, like it's stuttering. Bro, just ask your friend to like record some waves and send it over and you can sample it.
You
You can
talking about
sample literally any sound.
Talking about Dr. Dre, back in the day,
Mm.
him and Trent Reznor and some other people, they used to just every time they go to each other's studios, they would bring CDs. This is what I read from interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is just a wives' tale, but
Mm.
they would give each other sample discs and they would just
Mm.
trade each other's samples. And you don't really
Mm.
see that. I don't see that anymore. You know, I try to to do that to my friends, but I don't really see that so much.
Trading samples, I mean, it kind of happens with your inner circles.
Yeah.
If someone does find like a really good sample pack, or if someone actually purchases one of the beat packs or whatever,
Mm.
drum kits, it happens. But yeah, I guess you could say it doesn't. Sampling in general is like a very tricky area now. It's not what it used to be. Like, you
Mm.
don't want to get copyrighted. Like, even if you do sample, you need to flip it to the point where no one's ever going to be able to find out what it is,
Yeah.
right? You don't want that copyright infringement.
Yeah, and now I'm not sure if you saw. There's this AI that
Hmm.
splits, that extracts all the songs,
Yeah.
all the tracks out of the
Splitter.
song. Yeah, and
Yeah.
It's made by Deezer or one of these online marketplaces. Pretty soon they're gonna be running that shit through everybody's song, and they'll be like, "Oh, this
Hmm.
drum beat you sampled Aerosmith. Okay, well you got to give them
Hmm.
$20,000 or some shit."
Right.
Yeah, I'm worried about that one.
Right.
But yeah, that's it's. I like that you say that you were rendering out the wave files, the stems, because
Hmm.
it really shows that when you're trying to be a producer, especially in the beginning,
Right.
it's less important about finding the right time and the right tools, but just using
Hmm.
what you have and starting.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't just go to my parents and be like, you know what, all this brown boy studying. Like, if you're Indian, you're pretty much destined to be an engineer. Like, there's no other way. You're an engineer, and if you're like super smart, you want to have a shot at saving people's lives and shit, you can be a doctor.
Hmm.
And I think it pretty much stops right there. Your career options. Like, I couldn't go to my dad and be like, I want to do music, And he would be like, what does that even mean? Like, I've never heard of one other person who said this to me. And you're telling me you want to make music, you never even been to classes.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I went to keyboard classes for like 5 years and I didn't learn shit. It was like a really bad experience because I don't know why, but like back in the Middle East, my parents were like, go for music classes, go for keyboard classes. And I just went and I came back. I went and came back. Man, back, I just like, there was a time when I felt like, damn, this is a waste of money. Cause I don't know why, but someone sitting next to me and teaching me how to play Jingle Bells and the Saints Go Marching on a keyboard, something about that just wasn't right. Like, I knew I was musically inclined, but not in that sense.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't want someone to teach me. I wanted to figure stuff out on my own. Damn. I'm glad that worked out though, because now it doesn't seem like a waste of money.
Yeah.
5 years. Oh my God, that's insane.
Hot cross buns. That was the one that I remember they made you play. So we're getting towards the end of the interview. Thank you so much for your time. I totally appreciate it. I just want to finish up.
I always tend to go off on a tangent
No,
because
no.
I don't really do interviews all much. So I apologize if I skip some of the questions.
No. This is good. Is there any new releases you want to talk about before we go?
So I recently got into the crypto space thanks to Audius. And
I love Audius. For people that are listening right now that don't know what this is, it's like Bandcamp and SoundCloud stuck together, but works way better. It's so fluid, huh? I love it.
It's like a decentralized version of SoundCloud that exists on the Ethereum blockchain. And they have their own platform token, which they give out as incentives for using the platform, whether you're a producer or a listener even. And you can do with those tokens as you please. Like, you could cash it out or you could trade it and be in the crypto investing game. That's up to you. But the idea is to be decentralized, so you don't have to go through third parties and you get to keep 100% of your earnings as an artist. That's the whole idea. So I have some projects waiting to be released. I have a bunch of beats, and I just feel like I've been experimenting and trying different sounds for so many years that I forgot the joy of just making beats and putting it on the internet. Like, that's how it all started.
Yeah.
Making beats, putting it on SoundCloud, waiting for that first comment, and that rush that you get from that first comment, whether it's a bot or a human, it doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah. And now you can put the beats up as NFTs, right?
Yeah. I'm going to be minting them as NFTs.
Yeah.
Let's see how that goes. Because I'm also a CGI artist. Like, every couple of months,
I totally forgot to ask you about this. It's in my notes.
I find a new medium every couple of months, and I teach myself that. I brute force learn that, because this whole watching tutorials thing is like second nature to me. Like, I just love learning new shit so that I can express myself in like more dimensions.
Yeah.
And I do make a lot of visuals to go with my music. So this is what comes together in the NFT space. Like, I make CGI art, and I score it with my music, put it out there, and yeah, I'm exploring the space. But the thing is, I have this future beats tape coming up. It's like an ode to how I started off making music. Like, just make beats, not think too much about the structure or the mixing or nothing. Obviously, it's going to sound pristine. Don't worry about that. But I'm just saying, like, it's going to be beats and it's going to be stuff for your producer friends to vibe to. It's not going to cater to an audience, like a radio friendly audience or nothing. And I'm looking forward to that. And it's going to be loaded because it's going to be a result of 10 years in the music industry. Like, it's going to be all over the place. It's going to have a lot of songs. There's going to be some crazy visuals, and it's still in the works, but it's going to happen soon. I'm used to like putting out music every other month. And this year alone, I've been holding off for like 2 months. So I need to make up for it. So it's going to be a fat album.
Awesome. Sounds exciting.
Right.
Ezzy, thank you so much for your time. Send over the links so that we could add them to the show notes.
Sure.
The Audius links. Thank you so much for your time. It is awesome interview. I totally appreciate it.
Yo, thank you for having me, and I'm glad that we finally got to do this.
Oh man, fuck dentists. Bassfug was brought to you today by Fug Dentist. All right.
I've not had any bad experiences with dentists because I've just never been to one, and I've blessed to not have any teeth issues. But I've only heard horror stories about dentists.
Oh man. Anyways, that's a whole other thing. I'm gonna stop the recording right now. 1 second. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.
Yeah.
This program was brought to you by the superwill64.com Entertainment Network. For more great shows, podcasts, and music, please visit superwill64.com.